Hello and good morning, everybody. I am Helen Devani and I am the VP of Sage Foundation, and I want to extend a very warm welcome to you all to our webinar session today. Over the next hour and a half, we're going to be talking to you about our youth homelessness project, A Place to Call Home. We'll be sharing with you our journey, insight, and a toolkit resource that will enable you to replicate our learnings and help to stop more young people becoming homeless. We'll also share with you the legacy of the project and our commitment to supporting the young people that need it most through the transition to our future of work programs and partnerships at Sage Foundation. But very quickly before we start, I'd just like to go over some brief housekeeping rules for today. So this should happen automatically with the Zoom call, although I think I can see that there's a few people whose videos are still on, but would you, if you do have your video on, would you mind please just switching that off and making sure that your mic is muted during this session? We've all been on those virtual calls over the last 18 months where somebody's taking a call in the background and forgets to turn off the mute button. So this also really helps with our bandwidth and make sure that all of our speakers can be heard as well. We really want this to be as interactive as possible, so please use the chat function in Zoom during the session. Please share any comments that you've got, any feedback, and also if you want to post any questions ahead of our panel discussion. We also want you to get busy on social media today and to help us to promote what we've been doing with the Place to Call Home program. So do please tweet, post on social media platforms about today's event, about your reflections, and we have the hashtags hashtag Place to Call Home, and our Twitter handle for Sage Foundation is @SageFoundation, as you can see there. We're also recording the session today, and it will be uploaded to our Sage YouTube channel after the event in case you'd like to watch it again or to share it with anybody else. So with the housekeeping done and out of the way, we want to move onto the main event. Now, all of you are here because you have a shared view with us that youth homelessness is an unacceptable issue. No child should have to suffer the trauma of having nowhere where they feel safe. So in 2016, we began our thought leadership project called A Place to Call Home, initially undertaking research with the Centre for Education and Youth to understand the causes of youth homelessness in the Northeast and also the educational experiences of homeless young people. And since then, we've worked with a range of organisations and experts, including local Northeast charity Family Gateway, who you'll hear from later on, to fund preventative interventions and to identify how organisations can best stop young people from becoming homeless. So I want to just quickly run you through our agenda for today. So we have been joined by some amazing speakers, and I'm really pleased that they've agreed to be involved with this event today. So just to run you through quickly, you're going to hear from Ellie Mulcai, who is our Sage Foundation project lead, and she will give you an overview of the A Place to Call Home project. We'll then hear for the first time from Ellie Mulcai from the Centre for Education and Youth, and she will be giving us an overview of the toolkit itself and the learnings from the project, as well as the Centre for Education and Youth's latest publication, Young People on the Margins. Now, it's also really important to us that we hear from some of the amazing young people who've been part of this project. Eric and Alicia took part in the initial research and have been supported by Sage, and they will share their journey and their story with us. We'll then hear from Chris Dowland, who is our Sage Foundation Future of Work Programme Manager, and he's going to talk about the legacy of the A Place to Call Home project and how this has helped us to transition our focus on our future programmes. We'll then move on to Sam Olsen, who we're really pleased joins us from Movement to Work, where she is the CEO. And Sam's going to share with us some insights into the amazing difference that Movement to Work makes to supporting young people into employment, and how that partnership links directly into our Sage Foundation Future of Work programs as well. And then finally, we're going to finish off the session with a panel discussion, and that is where we'd invite you to start thinking about any questions that you might have throughout and start posting them in the chat. So we've got some great guest panelists who've all been involved with the project. So Catherine Marchant, who is CEO of Catherine Marchant Consulting. Pauline Wonders, who is the former CEO of Family Gateway. And we'll also hear from Ellie again from the Centre for Education and Youth. And finally, I'm also delighted that we've been able to partner today with the North East Youth Alliance to help deliver today's session for everyone. This is a really great example of building a partnership in the North East with local charities where our aims are aligned in helping to support young people. So I hope you enjoyed today's session, but more importantly, take away some information or commitments that are going to make a difference to you and the people that you're working with in the future. So again, just to remind you to interact throughout the chat, throughout the event in the chat function. And finally, I'm going to hand over to our host, our MC for today, who is John Niblo, who is the CEO of the Northeast of Northeast Youth, sorry, and co-founder of the Northeast Youth Alliance. So John, over to you.
Thank you, Helen, and welcome and good morning, everybody. Delighted to see so many people signing up for this really important event. Particularly during this holiday period, where I'm sure many people are out and about delivering some fantastic work with young people. So thanks, Helen, and the North East Youth Alliance, we're delighted to be invited by SAGE to collaborate on the launch of this event and the rollout of the toolkit moving forward. And just a bit of background on the North East Youth Alliance. It's a collaborative 5-year funded programme by the Big Lottery, the Community Fund, to provide increased investment and support in the youth sector in the North East. The partnership that is between, the alliance is between ourselves, any youth, and our good friends at Youth Focus North East. And the aims of the North East Youth Alliance are to the development of a truly equitable partnership rooted in local communities, to support culture shift, which we think is vitally important as we recognise that collaborating and working collectively, it's patchy. There's some fantastic examples of good collaborative work, but we need to look to see how we can improve that and support people moving forward. We're looking at developing partnership models that is driven at a community level by local organisations, and one that is formed and influenced directly by young people. Youth voice, young people-led programmes are at the heart of the North East Youth Alliance. Obviously, ultimately we're looking to improve the quality and coordination of services and support for young people. And the development of an effective model of partnership working that can be replicated or adapted across the country. So a big challenge, big opportunity, 5-year programme, and we've just come to the end of year 1, where I know a number of people on this call have participated in our workforce development offer, which has been a never seen before coordinated offer of support, training, workforce development for the sector, and more recently. We've managed to secure within the alliance some funding from the Youth Endowment Fund around a peer research project around youth violence, where there's 15 partners across the North East involved in delivering this partnership. Okay. I'm just going to now introduce a short film by Elaine. Sadly, Elaine can't attend today, but she's produced a short film which we can look at, and which would also form part of the Q&A later. So we'll move on to Elaine's short film now. And Elaine is the project lead, the SAGE Foundation, and now seconded to Movement to Work. And it's a bit of an overview of A Place to Call Home.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Ellie Mulcai, SAGE Foundation Manager for the UK and Ireland, and I'm currently on secondment with Movement to Work. In October 2016, I joined SAGE Foundation to manage a then unnamed project which wanted to do more to support youth homelessness. My years in the career service and charitable youth sector gave me an insight into the challenges that young people face when they live on their own. We started by reaching out to our networks, supported by Catherine Marchant in Newcastle, who you will hear from later. We spoke to many charities in London and Newcastle to get a feel and understanding of the sector. As a tech company, we were looking for data, stats, facts, and we quickly realised that because this is such a complex issue, there wasn't a lot out there. Even the definition of homelessness was vast. From sleeping on the streets to living in a hostel, it still means you don't have a home. So we decided to take the time to learn. We commissioned Centre for Education and Youth, an educational think tank, to write a research report on our behalf on the impact homelessness had on young people and the root causes. We worked closely with 10 homeless young people to hear their voices. 2 of those young people joined us today to tell their story. In September 2017, we launched this report and committed to looking at what else we could do to prevent that moment when a young person became homeless from even happening. We decided to focus on early intervention and family mediation and understand what needed to happen to prevent the young person from presenting homeless in the first place. We wanted to fund a pilot project, and our research led us to identify Family Gateway's barefoot professional model. We wanted to test the theory to further understand what bespoke employability support for young people that were at risk of homelessness really looked like. That even though many wonderful programs are out there, they often focus on CV writing and interview skills, just not addressing the underlying issues that really stop a young person from seeking work. Family Gateway delivered a small program offering wraparound support to test what was really needed and what it cost to move a young person to the next stage. 10 out of the 12 young people moved into employment or education. All of them continue to get support because there is no any day when it comes to supporting a vulnerable young person. In addition, Centre for Education and Youth wrote 2 reports giving a unique insight into the cost benefit of early intervention and the impact better partnerships could have on plugging the gaps in provision supporting young people at risk of homelessness. The final part of the project was that we want to share what we knew and what we had learned with the wider community. Centre for Education and Youth wrote a toolkit for practitioners who were looking to scale up or start work supporting young people at risk of homelessness to better explain the importance of early intervention. And today, a little later than planned due to the small matter of a global pandemic, we are sharing the toolkits and reports with you. At our last event, I spoke about how proud I was that Sage Foundation started this project. 4 years looking for innovation, to listen, learn, and understand what is needed. As a youth and careers worker, I have worked with many amazing organisations that support young people once they have passed that crisis point, but have also seen firsthand their frustrations that more couldn't have been done earlier, or to remove red tape to make the lives of these young people better. Working in Sage Foundation, I've been in a unique position to drive real change, also use my background experience to continue to help young people. Right now, I'm on secondment at Movement to Work, continuing Sage Foundation's commitment to supporting young people as early as possible, not only in the North East, but across the UK. I'm speaking to employers of big business every day, supporting them to look and think differently about supporting those furthest from the job market, knowing that early access to a job and a career can be one part of ensuring that every young person has a place to call home. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the event.
Okay, well, sorry about those technical and sound issues there. Do apologise, and you know, but a great overview there from Elaine, and you know, she's such an infectious character, and sadly we couldn't have her here today, but that video does give a good overview. I'm now going to introduce Ellie Mulcai, who head of research at the Centre for Education and Youth, who's going to give an overview now, and I'll hand you over to Ellie.
Sorry guys, could everybody hear me?
Yes, we can, Ellie.
Sorry, I was having a real delay there. Hi everybody. So glad to be here, and so glad that we got to hear from Elaine then, because she's just given such a great overview of the past 4 years of really exciting work. So my name is Ellie. I'm the head of research at the Centre for Education and Youth, and throughout a place called Home Project, we have been Sage Foundation's research and evaluation partners, working alongside all the great organisations that have been part of the project, and helping to bring the learning together at each stage. So just to give you a bit of an overview of who we are. We are a think and action tank, and we work with a range of organisations, all in the education use space, obviously it's in the name, to provide research, evaluation, other support in order to try to bridge the gap between research, policy and practice. And we're really driven by our mission to ensure that society provides young people with the support they need to make a fulfilling transition to adulthood, whatever that might look like. And so the work that I'm going to tell you about today over the past, that's taken place over the past 4 years, really exemplifies how we do a range of different things, but always focused on ensuring that we as a society understand what young people, the challenges they face, what support they need, and look to work with practitioners and experts on how that can actually happen. So Elaine's mentioned the different phases of the project, and I'm going to talk through them as well, just so that you understand how we came to focus on whole family and community-led approaches as part of this toolkit. As I come to talk about the toolkit a little bit more, I'm not going to go through it in detail, because of course I hope that you're all going to be able to have a look at it and that it will be useful to you. But it should give you a really good overview of how we got here and what we want the legacy of the project to be as Sage Foundation moves to their supporting young people into work programme. So back in 2016-17, I was lucky enough to be working with my colleagues and with Eric and Alicia, who we'll hear from later, as well as 8 other amazing young people. And we did a really in-depth research project, drawing on the literature and lots of different experts' experience and practitioners' experience on the ground, to look into what young people who experience homelessness and the challenges they face, the causes of their homelessness, and the impact specifically on their education. Of course, there are a lot of findings from that, but the primary finding that I'd like to share with you today, and that led on to each next phase of the project, was that the main reason that young people become homeless is because of family breakdown. And around half of young people each year in the huge surveys that are conducted on the reasons behind homelessness cite that as a reason of why they became homeless. And we very much found, when we were talking to young people, because young people's voices were really at the centre of this project and have been throughout, that even where another reason was given as a primary cause, at some point in their childhood or adolescence, their family relationships were breaking down, and that was really what had pushed them over the edge. We also heard from them about how devastating that is, and how much most young people who are experiencing homelessness are desperate to have closer links with their family again, even if they're not able to return to the family home. So it's really at the heart of what happens to these young people, and we were very aware of that. Because that's the primary reason that young people become homeless, when we moved on to phase 2 of the project, and Sage Foundation was looking to work with organisations that could prevent homelessness, family support and looking at the whole family was really at the core of that. We also knew from speaking to the young people that all too often young people had known that they were really in trouble, they were really facing challenges, and there was a high possibility that they were going to become homeless, but they were unable to access any support early enough to actually stop that from happening, which means that once they were able to access support, they'd already gone through the trauma, often of a full family breakdown, family relationship breakdown, and of course experiencing homelessness. It was really clear to us, and of course to Sage Foundation, and I'm sure to all of you here today, that preventing youth homelessness is a much better way to go. So the Family Gateway team applied their amazing model to a project in which they aimed to work with 10 families, which included 11 young people, because there's more than one young person in one of the families, in order to prevent youth homelessness. And we wanted them to provide whole family support. But the other element of the support that Family Gateway brought to the project was a community-led approach in which their practitioners have experienced the same issues as the young people that they're working with, which is an approach that Family Gateway takes across all their programs, and therefore are able to build really trusting relationships with the families, parents, and young people. So we evaluated this pilot that Family Gateway ran, and we found it to be very successful. We measured at baseline and at endpoint the differences in how young people and parents felt about their family relationships. And we also found the majority of the young people in the pilot were able to remain in the family home despite having been referred as high risk of homelessness. For those that didn't remain in the family home, which was 3, 2 eventually returned to the family home, and 1 was supported into independent accommodation because that was judged to be the right thing for them, which is of course the case for some young people who are facing homelessness. So essentially we were at a point where we understood the causes of homelessness. We were very concerned about the impact of youth homelessness on young people's education, of course, and we'd found a way of working that appeared to address the issue. So putting those 3 conclusions together and realising that at the moment there is a lack of preventative support and early intervention across the country, but also specifically in the North East, to stop young people experiencing homelessness. And all too often, those young people fall through the gaps and are not able to access help until they're in even more dire circumstances. But we know that whole family support, community-led approaches, especially those 2 things combined, can be successful in supporting young people. So at this point, we really wanted to think about how we could ensure that we were sharing learning from across the project to the sector. At this point, we've consulted with so many organisations, I'm sure some of you here today, so many experts, so many practitioners, and there's a huge appetite in the sector for sharing good practice. But as I'm sure you'll also realise, often practitioners and organisation leaders are very, very overstretched and find it difficult, even when they have great successful programs, to make sure that that learning is shared with other organisations. The Sage Foundation really saw that gap and wanted to ensure that learning from a place to call home and the legacy of it ensured that we were sharing that learning. So we've created the toolkit alongside the other reports that Elaine mentioned. And the toolkit is a simple, easily accessible document that sets out basic tenets of good practice and the key things that an organisation that wants to either start, shape up or grow a programme which uses whole family support and community-led approaches to support young people, what they should consider when they're doing that. So to create the toolkit, we of course had a lot of learning from the previous 2 stages of the project. In order to make sure that it was up to date and that we'd considered all angles of this, we did another section of research, which included, of course, drawing on the literature, looking at a lot of different organisations, evaluation reports, as well as academic literature in order to bring together recommendations for best practice. Of course, we kept talking to young people. Youth voice always been at the centre of this project, and hence why we're hearing from Eric and I think Alicia today. And we asked them what kind of support they wanted. I don't think it will surprise many people to know that the support they wanted was to get help early when things had just started going wrong, to have a trusted practitioner, a trusted adult that didn't judge them, that could help them with a range of different things, regardless of what it was they were struggling with or what challenges came up, and to help them maintain those relationships with their families, because young people recognise that that's really key to the challenges that they face and the issues that might occur if they do become homeless. We also convened a roundtable of sector experts, including many of you here today, and we talked about the key challenges in the sector, especially with regard to funding and funding partnerships, which is detailed in the report that Elaine mentioned, Building Better Funding Partnerships. But we also talked about what best practice looks like in the sector. And a massive thanks to all the people that contributed to that, because of course we magpied out all of those ideas and have included them in the toolkit. And we also conducted some in-depth case studies with organisations that provide this type of support to deal with to support families with different issues. Because what we really know is that preventative support, the whole family that's community led, it's not just about addressing youth homelessness. That works with a range of different issues that vulnerable young people and vulnerable families might face. And so we really wanted anybody looking at the toolkit to see how that could apply to their organisation. And if they wanted to begin, improve or scale up a programme like that, this was a starting point that they could use. So here is just a brief snippet of to give an overview of what's included in the toolkit. We cover best practice, key considerations for programmes that want to provide this approach. And we set out things like practical steps, checklists to help organisations think about their practice and make sure that they're covering everything, because of course there's a lot to think about with these programmes. And we also signpost a lot of different useful tools and things to consider. We use the examples from case studies of other organisations to exemplify how this works and to demonstrate that all organisations go on a learning journey. Now, I'd just like at this point to acknowledge that we really recognise that a toolkit can't solve all of the deeply challenging issues that the charity sector, the youth homelessness sector faces. And throughout A Place to Call Home, we have talked a lot about the different challenges that leaders and practitioners are struggling with, for example, shrinking and uncertain funding. And we know also that a lot of charity leaders and a lot of practitioners will already be thinking about a lot of the content in the toolkit. But what we were aiming to do was to bring it all together and to make sure that there was an easy access guide of those key considerations. And what I really think this will be useful for is helping organisations speak to all of their staff and also to persuade funders, governing boards, and other people to which they're held accountable why they wish to undertake things in a certain way and why they need support to practice in a particular way, and how they are sure that this type of support will have the right outcomes and support the people they're looking to support. Now, finally, I'd just like to share with you the conclusions from a decade of our work, which was summarised in our first published book, Young People on the Margins. And I'm mentioning that here not as a shameless act of self-promotion, buy it if you want, but also I'm going to tell you a bit about it now, so you'll already know. It's because it was so heavily informed by A Place to Call Home. Each chapter in the book is about a different group of young people on the margins. And my colleague Kate Bowen-Viner wrote a chapter about youth homelessness, drawing on a lot of our findings from A Place to Call Home. And in the book, we set out recommendations to policymakers, schools, and other practitioners to help address youth homelessness. But in the conclusion of the book overall, which covers lots of different issues, there were 4 key messages that emerged. And they really apply to A Place to Call Home and really demonstrate how Sage Foundation is taking the legacy of this work forward. The first message that is a key takeaway from Young People on the Margins is that in order to tackle the issues young people face, we need to tackle child poverty. Both of the key issues we're discussing today, youth homelessness and young people accessing employment, are closely interlinked with poverty. Issues are caused by poverty, and of course, if you experience homelessness, that leads to deeper poverty, which is a trap and very difficult to get out of. Poverty also affects the whole family, hence why whole family support is a key part of the solution to poverty. And we often felt like we were talking about lots of different complex issues, but poverty was underlying them all. And we really need to acknowledge the role that poverty plays and therefore how we're addressing that when we think about these issues. The second message was that we must demarginalise other services. Often in our work, because we work so closely with schools, we see a lot of recommendations that schools need to address all sorts of issues, and schools do a fantastic job at supporting young people as best they can, but they're sometimes not best placed to address all of these issues. And then other services are left isolated, underfunded and misunderstood, often struggling to make links with schools that are so overstretched. So as we set out in the toolkit and throughout A Place to Call Home, services working together and with schools and colleges is absolutely crucial. I think Eric might talk later about how important it would have been for services that were supporting him during the time that he was homeless to work with his college in order for that wraparound support to really make sure that he was able to get out of the situation that he was in. The third message is about demarginalising the margins, perhaps the most relevant to a place to call home. And that's essentially that we need to lower the thresholds of need so that young people can access support early and therefore be prevented from experiencing trauma from issues such as becoming homeless. We know, I'm sure you all here know today, prevention is better than a cure. And we've found a way here, and we outline a way in the toolkit that youth homelessness can be prevented. So we need to continue pushing to identify young people experiencing difficulties as early as possible and provide the support we need. And we need to keep pushing for funders as well as the government to understand just how important that is, rather than waiting for young people to have such high threshold of need before they're given any help. And finally, and this is a message to all of you here today, we concluded that young people are only on the margins if they're left alone. I know everyone here today is led in your work life by the desire and need to help young people and families. And we concluded in our book, which had brought together the work of so many different organisations and practitioners like you, that as long as these practitioners are fighting to support these young people, then those young people won't be left on the margins. However, the conclusions of A Place to Call Home and the driving force behind Sage Foundation's current work is that we know that so often young people that need support are slipping through the gaps. And so I really hope that the toolkit that we've set out today, and it is a short and a long version, depending on how much time you have, but do check out both, is going to be a small step towards getting all these young people the support they need. And if anybody has any questions or would like to talk more about it, our organisation details are on there. You can also just email me directly at ellie@cfey.org rather than hello@cfey.org, but I'll get it either way. I'd be really excited to talk to any organisations that are looking at taking the toolkit forward. So thank you so much for listening. I look forward to chatting to you a bit more about it in the panel discussion later. And I'll just give you back control, John. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ellie. That was brilliant. A great overview there, and some strong messages directly from young people, but also highlighting the importance of the prevention work and the collaborative approach between services to provide the best possible support to young people. Thanks, Ellie. I'm going to now welcome Eric and Alicia, who are both young people that took part in the original project research in 2017 and who have continued to be supported by Sage ever since. And they will share their journey with us.
Hello, can anyone hear us? Can anyone see me?
Yeah, we got you.
Right. right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for allowing me to speak to you today. I supported in A Place to Call Home research in 2017 and 2018. Since then, I've been supported by Sage and Elaine, as well as attending other events to tell me tell my story. I became homeless during the second year of college, level 3 on design. I was going to my normal day, finish college, and on my way home, I suddenly received a call saying I need to return back to college. And then they mentioned I can no longer go home due to my mum changing the locks, which she didn't tell us when I went to college in the morning, and then officially became homeless. Me and my mother had an argument 2 days before, and this was 2 days before, and this is when I was told homeless. I was being homeless. I have to 7 o'clock to arrive at the hostel in Gosforth. Now, I never knew where Gosforth was because I've always liked to stay local and comfort zone. For example, biker, stuff like that, walker. But Gosforth, I've never heard of Gosforth before. So always I never even got buses. So when I had to go get a certain bus, I think it was a 31. I'm usually getting the 12. So that's a completely different story. But I couldn't really venture out my comfort zone, so that was a challenge for me. I found my way to the hostel 2 hours late, standing in front of it, but I never realized what a hostel would look like, never mind what one it was. So I was standing in the rain with my black bags and all my belongings that were split. I had to carry my clothes in my hand. It was starting to rain, and I was on my phone with my girlfriend, and I was like barely any battery on my phone. I was walking up and down the high street, knocking on all people's homes to see if that was a hostel. In the end, I found it, and then started my life there. I had no professional support at the time of being homeless, apart from my girlfriend, who tried to her best to help me find the hostel, being on a call while she was looking on Google Maps to locate the hostel. Once I arrived at the hostel, I received help from my key worker, at the time, Gail and Shaz, who were in the hostel. Then I realized how little I knew, as I never had a bank account, uh, and never managed anything in my life before. That's where I learned the skills to manage money. But before all that, I never had ID. So I never had a bank account. And that was my first challenge to overcome, as I never knew anything about my life, as I was being sheltered by my family. So I was in full-time education, but Universal Credit constantly hounded me for to do 35 hours, even though I was like job search, even though I was in full-time education. I was receiving sanctions due to my circumstances, being homeless and being new to everything. I failed. Once I did manage to secure a job, then I couldn't get paid as I didn't have the correct ID, so I lost the job. Basically like a passport and stuff like that to prove it was me working. Because I was made to take the job, then I missed my exam, so technically I failed my first second gen college and my course, and I wouldn't get my certificate, my grade or degree, whatever it is. I was trying to work out all this by myself, and then I started at a place to call Home Project, and I met Elaine. She managed to get UC off my back and made them realize I shouldn't even been doing a job searches. However, I was never reimbursed for the sanctions I received and spent many years in debt to the job center. Elaine also helped me by speaking to my college tutor and explain my situation and how to put a claim and extend my funding. And they gave me another year to basically complete my course. In that year, I became hungry and managed to catch up on my work, and I passed my third year, and I caught up from my previous year's work within 1 year. That makes sense. 6 months in being in the hostel, I learned the basic skills: how to cook and prepare meals, manage money, and support I can receive. Then it would be time for me to meet my new K worker, Tony, and live in a semi-independent, having my own flat within the YHN managed complex rather than having my own room at a hostel, because they had like 12 rooms and everyone had their own room. Whereas this place had my own flat, like my own bedroom and stuff like that. Soon after, uh, Elaine got in contact about an event coming up in London where they wanted people from the hostel to tell their stories live on a panel in front of people, and I was like really interested, as I've never done something like that before. Elaine knew what I wanted to do was to be a tattoo artist. That was my dream job, so Elaine paid for everyone to come down to London and stay in London for the event, where she did workshops prior to the present at the event. None of us had been to London before. It's very different in Newcastle. Like no one's nice down London, apart from Elaine and like the Sage Foundation team. The day before the event, Elaine took me to meet a tattoo studio where they really helped me with my portfolio, gave me a lot of advice. They were really friendly, and I was going to like and I'm not going to lie, it motivated me because obviously it's my dream job, and I always wanted to be a tattoo apprentice, and it gave me the hints and tips on how to get in. Back at Back to the event, everyone introduced me then to themselves from the hostel and told their stories, while also meeting people in London who were homeless, like Alicia and I don't remember the other one's name. Um, but they were homeless in London, like in the hostel in London, as well as that was really interesting because I never knew it was actually that much. Like I never knew what a hostel was. Never mind, I thought that's where people went like traveling. And then never mind like where people go to be homeless. I then got called on the panel asking questions and told my story and battle. I was very nervous, but being myself, I stuck to humor, which helped me cope with the event, which was really fun. People came up to me introducing themselves and was saying stuff like how I was funny, etc., and how I like, because I was very nervous, but I didn't seem it. It was a great experience, and then something I could talk about, like job interview. Finishing college, I actually wanted to start work and receive additional income. and broaden my skills as a chef. However, the issues with my visa situation, I needed a passport ID to work due to me being Polish, and which I never knew, as I became homeless at 17, and I thought everything was fine. Battling for my passport was another challenge in itself, rather than UC. In itself took 2 to 3 years of constant back and forth, since I can't speak Polish, and my mother having limited information, having to speak to my family members I've never met in my life, I've never spoke to in my life in Poland. Me and my key worker Tony traveled back and forth, scraping as much information as we could to fill in the application form in Polish, which I can't read or write in Polish. So I had to get that one translated, which led to us traveling to Manchester and Newcastle like 5 times, being told the information we have is right. Come down to Manchester, we'll get it sorted for you. Then, sorry, we go to Manchester, and then it's like, sorry, you've got the wrong information. We need this, that. So back and forth, 5 times. We always check before traveling, and like we always double check with them, like through emails, calls. Is this the right information we need? Yes, that's right. Come down, we'll get it sorted for you. I go down there. Wrong information. You need this, you need that, you need the originals. You need to go back to Poland, get this one translated. Oh. Anyway, Debbie and Elaine from Sage were a huge help throughout this. There wasn't any funding for petrol, my passport, translation fees from the job centre, or my housing provider, even though it was stopping me from getting a job, and I was still getting sanctioned. Once I received my passport, I realised reading back on my visa, I had to apply for my own citizenship at the age of 21. I was now 20 and a half. God. And then, like, for my own citizenship, due to my like a joint one with my mum when she came to this country, I was like on a joint visa, and then when I was 21, I had to apply my own right. Being so young in this country, I was here since I was 4 months old, and then I became homeless at 17. And if I was 18, I wouldn't have received any of the help I received. So thank God I was like literally homeless at 17, never mind 18. My mother was fine, but with the massive help from Elaine and Sage Foundation, and Tony managed to get this all sorted for me, endlessly fighting alongside me. Months later, working hard on my portfolio, which I did in college. I didn't do my work in college. I was just basically drawing a portfolio in college using the resources there. I did work experience in a tattoo parlor to prove myself, and like a trial, and I actually got an apprenticeship. I was working for free for many months, walking there every day. So walk there to work was about hour 50 minutes. Walking back was a bit longer because it was more steep. Elaine helped me to understand getting an apprenticeship that would affect my housing benefit, as I was still in many years of sanctions and debt. So worked with the manager to employ me a part-time cleaner and practice as a tattooist while I was there. So one day I could then work full time. My key worker had then supported me many years past, when he should, then retired. And before he did manage to get me my actual own property, which I now live in and still live in. But Elaine got back to me in touch with my housing provider, so I could still get support as I settled. And as I was in so much debt. Um, it was a long time before, like from 17 to where I'm currently now at the age of 22. I finally am where I wanted to be, thanks to Sage, Elaine, Tony, like everyone, like they just whole Sage as well for helping me. Elaine, YHN, the hostel, like prepared me those steps to get where I am today. Elaine also asked me, like, would have helped or should have been different as a story of a place to call home. Is that early interventions lead to prevention of homelessness? Due to my family circumstances, I would have always end up in a hostel, but if I had more support on that first day, it would have been better. I was scared, alone, and didn't know what was going on. Also, having someone to fight the system for me really changed my life. The key workers were brilliant. Elaine had the knowledge of the college, but and job center, and did not give up on me till I got what I like. Well, not deserved, but like what I was working for. But, another thing is, I know many other young people around me are so hungry because they were trapped in a cycle, and this is an effect of the changes of getting their own place or getting on with their life due to the lack of knowledge and budget to pay for things like ID. Thank you for listening. Hope it was like not boring, but thank you for listening. And again, thanks to Sage for highlight how much this affects young people, and hope they do the great work that they do. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Eric. It takes great courage to tell your story there, and you've clearly showed incredible resilience to get to where you are today. And thanks to people who've put some positive comments in the chat there. And I spotted one about, you know, saying Eric's such an inspirational young man, and yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that. Sadly, Alicia can't be with us today, but we've got a short film again just to talk, where Alicia can get the opportunity to share her story. So I'll just put this on now, and I'll try and get the volume sorted as well if possible. Oops. As you can see, I have some difficulties myself here. Apologies, guys. This video isn't going to show it.
No, but this is what I'm on about. Zooms. It's not great, is it? Zoom. Oh, it's a shame.
Chris, did you have a copy of the video that you could possibly share as well?
I have, yeah. I'll pop it into the chat.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, John. And yeah, we'll that, I think Chris has just posted in the chat, and I would encourage everybody to go along and take a look at Alicia's video as well. It's another really powerful story, just like Eric's, and another one where you know, it just really brings to life the sort of challenges that Alicia has overcome, and the journey that she's been on. So please do take a look at that. But in the meantime, we will move on to the next section. Thanks, John.
Helen, can you possibly move us forward, because I'm stuck on this screen? Apologies.
John, whilst you're sorting the slide deck out, I know I'm up next. I'll just continue with my part because I don't have many slides to show on it. So thanks so much, Eric. It was great hearing your story that really brings to life the project and the importance of early intervention support. Shame we couldn't get Alicia's video up and running, but I think we've all kind of experienced virtual events enough over the last year to know that sometimes they don't go as smoothly as we'd like. So hi everyone, and thanks for inviting me here today. My name is Chris Gallen, and I'm a Global Programme Manager at Sage Foundation. I just wanted to spend a bit of time talking you through how we've used the learnings from A Place to Call Home to help shape the legacy and the transition to our programs that are focused on supporting young people. So how do we do it? We support young people in the charities that we work with in several ways. Now that's not just in the UK, but globally. So firstly, it's through our colleagues' time. We encourage our people to take action through voluntary work and fundraising challenges, and we give them 5 fully paid days each year to support non-profits, either face-to-face, virtually, or more recently, remotely. And secondly, through investment. So this is with targeted investment funds, which enable us to support non-profit partners financially through grants, and that's to help support both existing and new innovative programs. And then thirdly, through capability. So we support non-profits and charities by providing them with the products, the resources, and the expertise they need to succeed. By transforming the way our people and non-profits connect, think and collaborate through our NPO Success Programme. And then lastly, through our programmes where working with young people is a key area of focus, and where we look to ensure all participants of the programmes achieve work readiness and that a bright and prosperous future is attainable for all. So for us, the learnings of the project enable us to develop, build and take forward what we call our signature programs. So that connects groups about access and opportunity to opportunities within the workplace to help provide them with a secure and stable personal foundation. Can I just ask if anybody's not on mute to pop themselves on mute? Sorry, there's a bit of background noise coming through there. So all of our programs in this area have got a focus on access to education, ensuring work readiness and opportunities in entrepreneurialism. So we've got a number of partnerships and programs, but I'll just highlight two of those which show the direct link between Sage Foundation's work on a place to call home and the ongoing support of individuals who face barriers to employment. So Sage Pathways is a program which is a support, development, training and recruitment program, and this is designed to help people return to work. So Pathways offers real, open, permanent roles with flexible working, retraining opportunities, recruitment readiness support. It's available to all returners. So we've run several successful Pathways programs, not just in the UK, but also globally now. And secondly, I just wanted to highlight our most recent pilot, so our Sage Work Experience program. And we ran that for the first time in June in partnership with the Launch Group, who are an expert training provider that specialise in delivering and creating employability programs for young people. And Movement to Work, whose CEO Sam you'll hear from shortly, and who I was lucky enough to spend the last year on secondment with, helping to support other businesses in creating programs to support young people who face barriers into employment and gaining a deep understanding of the challenges and barriers young people face in accessing the labour market. And the reason that I wanted to highlight that programme in particular is that it really draws on the learnings of a place to call home and how we've built them into an accessible programme that puts developing and supporting young people into the heart of what we want to achieve. The objective for us with this programme is to help support and develop those young people furthest away from the labour market by levelling the playing field into employment through the creation of a programme that equip them with the skills, confidence and opportunities. We want them to be successful in gaining sustained employment, whether that be with Sage or another employer. So the programme took place virtually over a 2-week period from Monday to Friday with a mixture of employability skills and business insight sessions, and all participants invited to apply for the customer service apprentice roles at the end of the programme. So there was actual real jobs available. So participants were sourced through a number of partners, so including the Job Centre Plus and our local charity partners. And as part of the programme, we wanted to make sure that for those that weren't successful in being hired by Sage, there was a really clear employment pathway. And by partnering with the Launch Group, they provide individual guided career support through access to their other employability programs and their online learning portal for a further 6 months. So it means we can track the success of the programme. So we're currently tracking the progress of the participants through our internal recruitment process, as well as through the Launch Group to measure the success, and reviewing the learnings from the pilot to understand how we can develop the programme and take it forward in the future and to support more young people into employment. So at Sage, we understand the value of supporting young people, and we know that financial independence and security leads to stability for them. We'll continue to work hard to support our ambitions to knock down barriers for young people so that they're given the opportunity to thrive. Thank you for listening, and I'll hand back over to John.
Thank you, Chris, and huge apologies for the further technical problems there, guys. But we will move on. And yeah, Chris has has been hugely influential in how we're trying to move this forward, and has put a huge amount of work into the program in recent times. So thanks, Chris. Okay, I'm going to now move on and introduce Sam Olsen, and.
Hi, John.
And Sam is a Chief Executive for Movement to Work, who will take us through this next piece. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks very much, John. Just checking you can hear me okay. Great. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me and great to virtually meet you all. So as a bit of an introduction, as you've heard, I'm the current CEO of Movement to Go Work. We're a charity that was founded by business with one purpose, and that one purpose is all about levelling the playing field for all young people by removing barriers into employment through really brilliant work experience placements and other job opportunities. In its simplest term, our whole purpose for being is about getting more businesses to run more impactful employability programs. We're fortunate enough to be completely funded by our steering group, which enables us to work with individual businesses to help them create really impactful programs, supporting those furthest from the labour market, and very much in line with some of the evidence and research we've been hearing around homelessness. What we see is when a business decides to run a work experience programme supporting young people furthest from the labour market, if they do it themselves with the best of intentions, they will get about a 30% conversion for that young person, either into long-term employment or back into full-time education. However, and this is the killer fact for us, where a business decides that they're going to engage a youth outreach organisation, that conversion rate moves up to a whopping 70%. It is just crucial for young people who have faced multiple barriers getting into work, that in those first early steps, that they have organisations around them that can support and signpost them with a lot of the other things going on in their world, whether or not that's family breakdown, whether or not that's not having a safe place to go home to at the end of the day. I remember working with Jamie Oliver's 15 programme many years ago now, and he wanted to understand the high turnover of staff. And I was working for a children's leaving care charity at the time, went and spent time with each of the young people, those ones who were starting to not turn up to work. And the number one factor was on a Thursday and a Friday, they were starting to get worried about where they were going to sleep at the weekend. Having a safe place to live is such a crucial basic point in order for you to be able to build up from if you're trying to become more financially independent. So I like to use these sessions for a bit of research because I'm quite fascinated at the moment by other people's work experience. So just quickly, put in the chat for me so the types of work experience you first had when you were first thinking about entering the workplace. For me, it was about working in a hotel, serving breakfast and cleaning bedrooms. And I talk to young people now who say to me, I don't want a career in retail and hospitality, Sam. Why would I do work experience in retail and hospitality? And I say to them, because it helps you understand how organisations work. I learned all about how money flows through a business and how to change a bed really, really quickly. So maybe that last one was more helpful with being a mum now, small children, but that customer service and understanding how money works through an organisation, absolutely crucial. So for those of you putting in the chat your work experience, thank you. But to help some of the young people on the call too, put in the chat what you learned from it and what you're still doing today. So I'm going to give you some numbers and data now. Overall, across the UK, unemployment's currently at 4.8%. However, youth unemployment is at 13.2%. Now, youth unemployment is always slightly higher than the overall national figure. But what COVID has done is massively increased that gap. We are really concerned about what's going to happen at the end of furlough. Most people who are on furlough at the moment are those over 50. However, think about those over 50s coming back into the labour market and what that means for the availability of opportunities for younger people. If I could leave you with one piece of data on young people and youth employability at the moment, there are currently double the number of young people claiming universal credit than there was before the pandemic. Young people have been so adversely affected by job losses, disrupted education, and the impact of mental health. They're really struggling right now, and that's where we really need to help them. So at Movement to Work, we have got a whole breadth of opportunities for young people to apply for, from Unilever, I'm Walls programs, Marks and Spencer's. They're all about getting young people into retail. But BAE Systems have a whole host of opportunities that are about everything from engineering to working on submarines. I find out I'm a bit geeky. I get excited about some of the stuff at BAE Systems. If I could ask Chris at this point to just put in the chat the Get My First Job link, or the link to the Movement to Work website where you can see all the opportunities, you will see there's huge amounts out there for young people to apply for. However, and this is the crux for us at the moment, young people who are furthest from the labour market lead very chaotic lives. There is a lot going on in their world, which is why they're furthest from the labour market. And it is just crucial that we find ways to meet them where they're currently at. And that is really hard at the moment, because a lot of youth provision hasn't opened back up again yet. A lot of young people are still feeling scared. They've not been double jabbed. And it's just quite easy for us to all forget in our general work day where these young people are and some of the challenges that they've been facing. In the press, we hear about a lost generation, but at Movement to Work, we advocate to act now and act boldly, because this does not need to be a lost generation fate for these young people. We need to do something about it. And I talk to business leaders about having a responsibility to be part of the solution and not the problem. We need to challenge our organisations to recruit for potential and to support the young people who face barriers into the market, even pre-COVID-19. We need to stop thinking about neat CVs and think about building impactful programmes and continue to develop evidence and insight into what works. I've always found that energy of young people bring really inspiring. However, when you look a little deeper, they bring skills and talent for an ever-evolving workforce. It's really tough out there, particularly if you've been in the criminal justice system, a refugee, in care, homeless, or living with a disability. Moving into employment, developing digital skills and financial independence is the start of giving everyone an opportunity and the freedom to be the best they can be. Right, that is it from me. I think I am handing back to John. Any questions in the chat? Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Sam. That was excellent, and I would certainly encourage people to stay connected with Movement to Work, and follow the progress and explore the opportunities that can present to yourselves and the organisations and young people. Thanks, Sam. Okay, we're going to move on now to the panel discussion. We're a little bit later than scheduled, but we'll still make sure the panel discussion is meaningful. And we can get the chance to engage. So at this point, I will ask the panel members to introduce themselves and give a little bit of background about how they were involved in the project. I know we've already heard from Ellie, but we'll ask Ellie to kind of go first and reintroduce herself. Then we can go to Pauline and Catherine. Fire away, Ellie.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, as I've said, I'm head of research at the Centre for Education Youth, and I, as was probably apparent in my presentation, started working on the project. I think I was actually a junior researcher at the time, and so have been in it from the beginning. I also work on a variety of other issues, including young people, access to higher education, access to career support, and particular groups of young people such as Gypsy, Roma and Traveller young people and the challenges they face in the education system. So I think some of those themes may well come up today.
Thanks, Ellie. Pauline?
Hi everybody, I'm Pauline Wonders. At the time of this project, I was Chief Executive of Family Gateway. I've literally just stepped down from that role for personal reasons, and I'm Strategic Consultant to Family Gateway now. Family Gateway is a local child poverty charity. We work with children, young people and their families. And our model, like Ellie alluded to earlier, is based on the Barefoot Professional model. So everybody we employ has had first-hand experience of the issues families face. It's very much a community-led approach. It's about using experience rather than necessarily qualifications. And it's a very intense and bespoke service that we provide to families, working on all issues with all family members. And we work with some families for between 6 months to 2 years, depending on how long they need us. So I'm very, very, very proud of what we did at Family Gateway and what Family Gateway are still doing, and incredibly proud of the work that we did with the Place to Call Home. And if I get a chance with questions later, I can explain how we've sustained some of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline. And finally, Catherine.
Hi everybody, Catherine Marchant. I'm a consultant for in the charity and community sector, but I've got a 25-year background of working in charities, predominantly youth charities. I was involved, as you heard in Elaine's video, at the very start of A Place to Call Home, before it was called that, helping to identify the practitioners in the North East who work around in homelessness in general, and helping with the research. And for the last year of the project, I was project manager, working with Ellie and with Pauline and Elaine at Sage, just to coordinate everything, keep everything together, and bring the project to a conclusion.
Thanks, Catherine. Okay. We'll kick off. We've got some questions that have come in previously, and then we'll go through the chat and get through as many as we can before we finish. Catherine, first question for you. As you said, you've been heavily involved in the project. So from your experience, how can charities and services that have a focus on youth homelessness prevention work better together to ensure that there's a collaborative focus and a drive to reducing homelessness for which those identified as being at risk?
Well, it sort of answers itself, the question. I mean, it's two simple things. It's collaboration and communication, but I recognise that that's easier said than done when we're all focused on our own things. But it starts with a need for people, a desire for people to want to make it happen and want to work together, because without that, nothing will work. But I think what really is needed, and it's quite interesting that we have you, John, in the Youth Alliance, because you have now a model of an example of how to bring youth organisations together and to start that collaborative process and working together. And I think it needs a replication of that, or it just needs an addition to what you're already doing at NEYA to sort of make that happen. But what we need is clarity. We have to recognise that this is a journey for a young person, and it's not just the young person themselves, as we've said. It's potentially the whole family, and this is a journey, and no one organisation can deliver everything, all the support that young person or that family needs. So there needs to be a mapping and clarity on who does what at what stage of that journey, but just as importantly, what people don't do. We have to be very brave to say this is what we do, and this is what we're very good at, this is what we're excellent at, but this part isn't ours, and somebody else needs to do that, because without that, we can't have that seamless progression for a young person or their family members to move from one level of support to the next, or one service to the next. And I think we need that, as I say, that desire to work together, that coming together, and everybody to, that mapping and to start putting something in place. And I think a central hub in an ideal world would be a great place so that this information can be disseminated to youth organisations. So if somebody comes against somebody a young person who they think is at risk, that they know where that first port of call is. And I think we have to recognise it's not always social services. It's probably somebody like Family Gateway, family entrepreneurs, who can start and build that relationship with the family and the young person to start with. So that to me is what we need, but we've got to try and keep it simple as well.
Thank you, Catherine. Just moving swiftly on, I am very conscious of time. Pauline, next question is for you. You know, the Family Gateway with a charity partner chosen to deliver the pilot project, and you've seen firsthand the success the early intervention and whole family wraparound support can have. What learning have you taken from the project, and how have you been able to apply them to any of your other services?
I think that's an interesting one, because we've kind of gone around the cycles, because when we were approached about this, we actually took our 8 years of learning into this context. So we've been working with children, young people and families in a holistic way for many years, but we'd never worked in the context of youth homelessness and prevention of youth homelessness. So we took our model, our very proven model in, and that was really important, because you can't just do this on a shoestring. You have to really know what you're doing. There are serious issues around safeguarding and all sorts of risk in here. So we took our model in and we tested it in the context of youth homelessness. And what we found, not surprisingly, was that the home environment and the family dynamics and relationships, as Ellie has said, was a massive influence on young people's aspirations, on the choices that they made, and ultimately on their life chances, but not just for them, but for future generations down the line, because this is a cyclical generational thing. And you know, we need to break the cycle here and build resilience in young people, because they will become parents, and we want them to create that stable, safe family environment for their children. It's just so important. I think that, you know, the key learnings were that family stability and family relationships are key. Home isn't a house or a room or a tenancy. Home is somewhere that is holistic, that's safe, that feels good, that feels calm and feels nurturing. The model of support that you give has to be proven, it has to be strong, it has to be incredibly well supervised. But absolutely, as Catherine says, you can't work on your own. We aren't specialists in counselling or anything else. We need to work with other organisations that bring that into our model. But we remain as the trusted professional lead and signpost in and out. So partnerships are absolutely critical. I think one other thing that's come out of this and subsequent work that I'll mention very quickly in a moment is around adverse childhood experiences. And if you're going to delve into adverse childhood experiences and encourage young people to open up about those, because they will be there, you have to be really careful. Make sure you know what you're doing and make sure you have all of the support around you, because all sorts of things will come out there. But almost every young person that we work with has an adverse childhood experience, and so do their parents. It tells the story itself. Youth diversion. There's a lot of talk about youth diversion at the moment. It's everywhere. It's easy to say, very hard to do. And again, poverty. Yeah, poverty is critical, but poverty isn't just about money. It's not just about cash. It's not just about how much you earn or don't earn. So very quickly, what we've done with that, we aren't funded anymore for work on youth homelessness. We've been able to sustain a bit of that, but we haven't been able to find funding for youth employability programs or youth homelessness, because there are so many organisations out there, but that doesn't mean to say we don't do it. What we have been able to do is take a lot of our learning around pre-employability and youth support and youth diversion into some brilliant programs that we're running and that are funded by the Police and Crime Commissioner's Violence Reduction Unit around diversion from crime and antisocial behaviour. And all of this is linked, because almost every young person that we're working with is at risk of moving into care or at risk of moving out of home or is already out of home. So it's all linked, but it's kind of where the funding comes from, isn't it? So, you know, we're working with about 60 young people at the moment. Very tragic circumstances and very hard work, and that's growing, and work across all 6 local authorities. And our barefoot professionals have been there. They're absolutely fantastic because they get it and they engage very quickly with these young people. Again, easy to say, very hard to do. So, you know, we want to just continue to do that so that future generations can benefit from family stability, resilience and improved life chances, and a place to really call home, not just a house. So we've learned a lot, and thanks for the opportunity, Sage, because especially with Ellie's research, we learned a lot about confirming that what we're doing was working and how to place that in a different context.
Thanks, Pauline. And the next question, and possibly the final question, and to Ellie. Ellie, you've been involved from the very start, and it's really clear that the key to preventing youth homelessness is early intervention, along with whole family wraparound support. So I suppose the question is, following that support, how do we ensure a sustained solution for young people who are at risk of homelessness to reduce the risk of it happening again in the future, so they can become independent and financially secure?
Great question, thanks, John. I think my answer would be twofold. One would be listen to the young person about what they need, and the second would be thinking about the support that young people need. Not to take from our mission, that it fits so well here to make a fulfilling transition to adulthood. One of the things that we found in the first stage of the research was, perhaps unsurprisingly, that all the young people, despite the really difficult circumstances they were in, were incredibly ambitious. It's so exciting to see Eric and his tattoo apprenticeship picture there, which I didn't actually know about yet, Eric, because I remember that day in London 3 years ago, him saying that what he wanted to do was own a tattoo parlour. So seeing those ambitions from young people and hearing them, I think is the first step to understanding where they want to go. And I think all practitioners should start there and then look to how we can help young people get there. My second point was that I think the support needs to be holistic. In order for a young person, to continue to be independent, perhaps they return to the family home, but they're 17, 18, and they do want to move out, is of course related to their education and their employment. And I think the thing we need to think about is the fact that the way that we give that support is different for each individual young person. Some young people, when they're homeless or they're experiencing family difficulties, will not be ready for support about their education and their employment. And it is very much a case of looking at the issues that they face, addressing them in turn. For others, they may be ready for that education and employment support, and they should receive it. And that will be part of what helps them to address the homelessness issues or family breakdown issues that they might be facing. So I think that real individualized support, tailored support, which I know Sage really backs, along with movement into work, is really important, because each young person's circumstances are different, and essentially they're looking ahead to achieving their aspirations. Being homeless is a huge barrier to them doing so, and has a huge implication for their ability to engage in education for quite obvious reasons, I guess. So as they look to those aspirations, each young person needs to have somebody there that supports them to think, okay, how are we going to get from where we are now to here? Whatever order you have to address their issues in is dependent on the individual. And then I think they need to be given a safe and secure place to live while they work to develop the skills, perhaps often catch up in education, and then start to build the skills that they need to move into the workplace. And I really think that should be focused on what they want to do, rather than too pure a focus on just getting them a job, getting them a wage packet. Because when young people face a variety of issues or come from a challenging background, or have challenges that are ongoing in their family, if we don't listen to what they want to do, there won't be enough motivation there for them to be able to continue to overcome those challenges and eventually be in the place that Eric is in now, which is so amazing to see him in.
Brilliant, thank you, Ellie. Look, guys, time has kind of beaten us, but we will promise to feed back as best we can to any questions that did come into the chat, and I know there was a couple of questions from Helen, but I'm going to hand back to Helen now to kind of close things up for the morning. But on behalf of the North East Youth Alliance, thank you so much for your time and energy and commitment, and for participating in this morning's event. So back to you, Helen.
Thank you very much, John. So that brings us to the end of today's session. Unfortunately, I know that we could all talk about the issues at hand here for hours and hours, if not days and days. So thank you very much to all of you for joining us today. A huge thank you to all of our guest speakers, the panelists, and also the team at North East Youth Alliance. So just a reminder that we will send out a follow-up link to the recording for today's session, and that will also obviously include the links to the project resources, which we've mentioned a number of times. I just want to add a quick thanks to all of the people who've shaped the A Place to Call Home project over its history. We've worked with some incredibly passionate, inspiring people, and just want to say thank you to everybody who's been involved with the project. And I'd just like to add a quick special thanks to Elaine, who has always focused on the individuals that we're helping through the project and really led this initiative with the passion that if you know Elaine personally, you know very well. So we hope you found today's session informative, and in particular, we hope that the learnings that we've shared can help shape services going forward to effectively prevent youth homelessness from happening. At Sage Foundation, we're committed to continuing to support young people and helping them to break down some of the barriers that you've heard about today, and to make sure that they can fulfill their potential. So all of our resources from the project are freely available to download on our website, and we'll put a link into the chat on that as well, and you'll also get it in the follow-up email. So that toolkit draws together all of the learnings from the research, the evaluation and collaboration that we've undertaken over the course of the project in the last 4 years. And you can also download an infographic which maps out the project timeline and includes the links to each of the resources as they were created. So we hope that it will support more organisations to help ensure that all young people have that most important thing, a place to call home. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attention and time today, and we look forward to engaging with you all in the future. Thanks and bye.